one of the big four accountancy firms. And prior to joining Cognizant last year, she was CEO at Atos Germany, a fellow big IT company. This is Ursula. Ursula is based today in Poland. So that's the life today, isn't it? So, which is great. So she's taking this call from Poland. She's someone committed to driving diversity, both professionally and personally. As Cognizant's president of global growth markets, she plays a key role in helping the company reach a variety of targeted geographies outside of North America. Alongside this, she's a dedicated Women in Tech ambassador. Women in Tech is more than a buzz phrase to her. It's something she champions with great passion by supporting women in the technology sector and helping to bridge the digital skills gap. I personally have attended many of her women empowered sessions and feel inspired and connected. Honestly, I've spoken to her like 2 times, but because of the sessions I've attended, I feel I know her more of a peer than the boss. What does the future of tech look like? What does it mean to be a woman in tech? Why should more of you, particularly the girls and women here today, go into tech? Here to lead the session and answer some of these questions is our host, Ursula Morgenstern. Over to you, Ursula.
Thank you very much. Hello and welcome to everybody, wherever you are in the world and whatever time zone you are in. My name is Ursula Morgenstern. I have been, as Padma really already said, I'm responsible for the international business in Cognizant, and that means I'm covering countries like Australia, Japan, Middle East, Singapore, and of course Europe and the United Kingdom, where I'm normally based. So I'm on a business trip, and it's really exciting. Actually, we started traveling again since about probably 2 months' time, and I finally a chance to meet my teams across the world. As I joined Cognizant during the pandemic, and spent my first 6 months really just meeting my team on the screen. I'm really excited to be with you today. For me, technology is omnipresent everywhere in the world, be it in our lives, the way we are connecting now, the mobile phones, and of course everything and all the other technology we're using in our private lives. But companies are impacted in the same way, and the COVID-19 and the pandemic really has accelerated it. There is no company at the moment who doesn't really think about how technology can change the way they're doing business. That's not only the way the employees are working with working from home, but it is also how to reach customers. You see many stores, we have seen during the pandemic how many stores had to go online and sell their products online, and how again that changed their businesses. So for me, technology is an absolutely fantastic area to be in as a professional, and personally it really has done me well. I have traveled the world with technology. I have been at some amazing events, be it the Olympics, be it at Formula One events, be it actually looking at a court and seeing how technology is used in a court. Really looking at how technology used in manufacturing, how technology is used at the nuclear power plant. And again, for me, it has given me that variety and that a constant opportunity to learn. So for me, technology is a fantastic space to be in, be it as a woman or as a man. But of course, with 30% of women, only 30% of women in technology, we are always keen to promote this as a fantastic place to be in. And I'm joined today by 4 other fantastic women from 4 different industries to really show how we are essentially, that technology plays a role everywhere. So we have Charlotte Baldwin, who is from Freshfields, Bruckhaus, Deringer, which is a legal firm. We have Becky Portis from British Telecom in the telecommunication industry. We have Michelle Prance from the NatWest group, which is in financial services. And last but not least, Helen Makey, who will join us a bit later from Aston Martin, and she will tell us more about her role as a senior in Aston. So great lineup. start with handing over to introducing our first speaker, which is Charlotte from Charlotte is a women in tech ambassador who also didn't take a well-trodden path into tech. When she was at school, women weren't encouraged to pursue tech, and yet she found a way to break into what she calls the impenetrable world of tech. And fast forward, 2 decades later, she's holding various digital leadership roles within FTSE companies. She's currently the Chief Digital Technology Officer of Freshfields. And Charlotte is here today to share her passion for digital transformation and to inspire you, our future technology leaders, to not be limited by your imagination. So, Charlotte, I look forward to hear from you.
Thank you so much for that fantastic introduction, Ursula, and also thank you, Padma and Cognizant, for including me. I'm really excited about the opportunity to be able to come and talk to you all today, and also, obviously take questions and hopefully cover things that will be of interest to you. As Ursula said, I'm going to focus on sort of my career path, but also I can talk more about the current role I'm doing as well. So first, I just wanted to give you a quick taster. I think there's another slide if you want to just bring that up, whoever is in charge of the site. This really was just to give you a little bit of an overview of who I am. So a few things on this page. The one, top right, the CIO 100. Yes, it's great that I'm on the list, fantastic. But what I'm most proud about is that there's a female face on that list and in the top 5. I'm also proud for my team of the work and everything that we've done that has got us, this recognition. But it's more, the female representation that I was just, so proud of. I'm quite a goal-focused person. I think some of these pictures tell that story. I climbed Kilimanjaro. I did it in, I think it was 3 days, so the quick route. Any of you who've also done that, it was pretty challenging. There's a lovely photo of me and my dad after we ran the London marathon. I must get some of my goal focus from him. He's an ex-Ironman. And we ran the marathon in just under 4 hours. And then I wanted to touch on the balancing multiple priorities. You can see there, there's a picture of me with my children. I have 3 children, aged 9 and under. So a 9-year-old girl, a 6-year-old boy, and a 4-year-old little girl. So life is pretty busy. Just to give you a taste of who I am. So, as Ursula said, let me talk about kind of my, career path and how I got to where I am. And she already helpfully touched upon the fact, I didn't have the traditional STEM background of study. And as a female student, I can honestly say, when I was studying, I wasn't really encouraged into STEM subjects particularly, and I didn't really think that much about technology. But what I did have was this real thirst for learning, this real learning mindset, and the thirst to look for opportunities to learn new things. And I think I was a natural problem solver as well. And over time, I developed a natural resiliency. So if things seemed like hard work and weren't always achievable straight away, I sort of kept on at it and tried to keep moving forward in the right direction. So when I graduated, I actually graduated in politics and Spanish. Well, half of that degree has been quite useful, I can tell you, in the jobs that I've done, I think, over the years. But what I did do was I joined a graduate scheme, and I started off on a tech support desk, actually supporting financial services clients with trading systems in Spanish, of all things. I was using at least part of my degree, but always I was looking to try and see what else I could learn and what I could do, and quickly got other opportunities as part of that scheme, and went on to be a technical account manager and manage technical implementations, because I was very lucky. The company did essentially training as part of that scheme, and I think after about 3 years at that company, I was starting to think about what I was good at and starting to think about my next challenge, which does sound very funny now, at the grand old age of whatever I was, 24, thinking, well, I want another opportunity. I'm not moving quickly enough here. I've learned everything that I can. And actually, I got an opportunity in a consultancy role, interestingly, in another law firm. Although I haven't spent my career in legal, I actually went to work for a law firm in a consulting role. And it was all about connecting technology with the business and understanding the business needs, the business problems, playing to my problem solving piece and skills. And so I moved into that role. But the real opportunity came because I had heard that they were doing a big transformation program, and I thought, well, that sounds really interesting. How can I get involved in that? What can I do? And it was actually a big global implementation of an ERP, an enterprise resource planning system, SAP, which some of you may be familiar with. I didn't know anything about SAP, but I thought, well, that sounds really interesting. It's going to transform the whole business. I want to get involved. And so, although I'd only been with the firm for a short time, I went and spoke to the project director and said, how can I get involved in this? Can I do, some stuff supplementary to the role I'm doing? And actually, I was very lucky. They pulled me into the program, and I started to work on this program. And actually, what it meant was I got soup to nuts, so start to finish experience of every aspect of a global implementation, through from blueprinting, requirements gathering, configuration, working with developers, customizing middleware, training, deployment, and then post the program, actually leading the team after the successful implementation, leading the CRM team once the product had gone live. But I quickly realized that actually business as usual and operational support wasn't really what I wanted to do. And I was very lucky at the time that I got approached by the implementation partner, so the consulting partner who worked with us, who happened to be Deloitte at the time. And the partner approached me and said, hey, you should come and work with us. We're setting up this new practice, come and be part of that. So I was very lucky, but I will say, I think you also make your own luck, but I was very lucky. I was, in the right place, and started working in consulting, which gave me fantastic opportunities, again, to work with lots of different clients across different industries. I really enjoyed the client-facing aspects of that role. And one of the clients that I ended up working with was actually Thomson Reuters, or actually it was Reuters before the integration. And actually, they had acquired the business I had initially started working with at the start of my career. So, the partner who was leading the piece of work said, well, you've probably still got loads of contacts there. Come and basically lead the UK, work in the UK PMO for the integration. Again, fantastic opportunity, learning lots about a very complex business integration between two very large organizations. And actually, as fate played out, the UK was the main, it was where the majority of the integration work was being led out of. Originally, they thought it was going to be led out of the US. And so again, I had the opportunity to sort of have a front seat, get involved in lots of different aspects of integration. but it also then meant that I was working very closely with the individual who was going to be the new global CIO of Thomson Reuters. That person was called Jane Moran, She is now the, in fact, sorry, I think she just changed roles, but went on to become the global CIO at Unilever. But at Thomson Reuters, I worked with Jane for 5 years, and had a fantastic opportunity to learn from her and get exposure to lots of different roles across that very large, complex organization. And in fact, it was Jane and a gentleman called Peter Moss at Thomson Reuters who gave me my first opportunity to lead a large-scale team. So I moved into a divisional CIO role after I had been doing more technology strategy for Jane. And it was then that I started to really think about how I start to fill in the different pieces, in my career and where I wanted to go. I was very lucky, as I mentioned, to have these role models that I could aspire to, and people that were essentially mentoring me and encouraging me to think about longer term. And so you see the quote on the screen about thinking about your career as a jigsaw puzzle. I really started to do that and think, right, okay, so I need to have experience of managing a team. I need to have experience of building out, strategy and delivering against that. And I had some fantastic opportunities at Thomson Reuters during my time there. And then after about 4.5, 5 years, actually, Jane talked to me and said that she was thinking about leaving and she was going to go and take an opportunity. And it got me thinking that actually it was the right time for me to think about what I wanted to do next as well. And it was then that I was very lucky to be approached about an opportunity to move to Pearson. I don't know if any of you are familiar. Some of you might be familiar with Pearson. So Pearson is a global education company. Actually started off as a publisher, but absolutely moving the business model and focus to be about education. A really, really interesting business. And I was very lucky to be offered a role to be the Chief Technology Officer, leading the core business there. But I was also very thoughtful about why I was taking that opportunity and why actually I thought it was the right thing to do. I wanted to have the opportunity to develop my skills beyond enterprise systems and the core enabling technology, to focus on digitalization of the business and products and services, and be more consumer or customer facing. And so, that was a driver for the move as well. Again, at Pearson, I did 3 different roles. So the CTO role, I also did a strategy role. My boss was promoted. So Albert Hitchcock, who was leading technology at Pearson, was promoted to look after operations as well. And so it gave a fantastic opportunity for me to kind of increase my knowledge and scope and support him from a strategy and planning and portfolio perspective in a new role. And then I also did another role, CTO role across global growth. I was at Pearson for, I think, about 4 years. I should know these days off the top of my head. At Pearson for 4 years. And then an opportunity came across my desk to join Freshfields. And I've worked in the legal sector before, and I thought, wow, I'm not sure, not known for its forward thinking, its innovative thinking, but actually, I like a bit of a challenge. I think there's a massive opportunity for the sector to transform, leverage technology, innovate the way that it's delivering legal services. And that really, really appealed to me. And
Charlotte,
I also
sorry,
wanted the...
just a time check, Charlotte.
Sorry, I'll wrap
No,
up on...
No, thank you.
Yeah, no, sorry, thank you. I knew I would speak too much. Apologies. So I'll just finish up very quickly on Freshfields. I wanted the opportunity to develop a strategy and deliver against that strategy. And so that drove my move to Freshfields. And I've been there for the last, well, coming up to 4 years, delivering a massive transformation, multi-million pound transformation, multi-year. Pleased to say, you know, we have delivered against it. I've got a fantastic team in place that I built, and that's where I am now. And you know, I think there's a couple of things to take away from what I've just described, which is, I think, you know, be a sponge, learn, take every opportunity to learn new things. I still try and challenge myself to learn something new every day. Networks are absolutely key. Most of the opportunities I've had in my career have come through my network. Be resilient. So many times things don't go your way. Dust yourself off, get up, carry on. And then to be a good leader, you really have to be authentic. People have to want to follow you and help you do what you're trying to do. And I think being open, building trust has been so key to me through my career. And then finally, understand and recognize and really get familiar with what you're good at. If you're good at building teams, fantastic, you know, focus on that. If you're good at complex legacy environments, build out that skill set. If you're good at problem solving and strategy, you know, that's another string to your bow. So I will be quiet now. I could talk for so much more, but hopefully you can take something away from kind of my career story.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. Really, I think what I took from here is that, again, one job led to the other, one job opened an opportunity for the next one. Ahead of the event, we had students across the world share questions for our speakers, and we will now play a question from a student for Charlotte, and let's do it rapid answer, a minute answer, Charlotte, but here your student question.
Hi, my name is Emma Brady and I'm a student at DCU. And my question for Charlotte is, can you explain a complicated thing you know how to do in 2 minutes or less? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Emma. And obviously my time, I'm not known for my timekeeping, so here goes. I'm actually picking a complicated activity based on a question I got asked actually last week. So how do you build out a technology or an architecture for a new business or a startup? So firstly, ask the questions around strategy. What's the company and the startup trying to achieve, by what and when? What are the key strategic objectives? How are you going to measure those? Next, what key business capabilities and processes need to be in place to support that strategy and those key strategic objectives? What data needs to underpin those capabilities? Once you have that business information and you've had those discussions, you can then start to define and design your architecture principles. For example, we're going to leverage the cloud wherever possible. We need to operate out of 20 different global jurisdictions, etc. And along with that goes the security policies and principles as well. Once you have those steps, you can then start to build out your business capability to application mapping. Now, what people tend to do is they jump to the technology solution straight away. Totally wrong. You need to do those steps that I described first, although very quickly, and I'm obviously trying to make it sound as simple as possible. So once you have your business capability view of your architecture, your technology that can support those business capabilities and processes that need to be in place by the dates that you have discussed with the business, you then can get onto the infrastructure and enabling tech to support it. But it all has to be business driven, based on the business strategy and the objectives and the plans. When do things need to happen, by what date? There you go.
Thank
I don't know if that's quick enough.
It was a tough question, I must say. Our second speaker comes from the telecommunication industry and is passionate about people and partnerships. And without further ado, I will hand over to Becky from British Telecoms.
Thank you so much. And you're a tough act to follow, Charlotte. And I'm having my own technical challenges as well. So please forgive me on this. But I would like to tell you, I guess, a story. It's my career story in terms of how I came into telecoms, what I've learned along the way, a bit of industry insights, and I think it's worth starting with the fact that I've been in telecoms for 24 years, but actually only half of those have been in technology roles. And I didn't set out to work in technology after I graduated, but it's just how my career has naturally evolved. And some of the counsel I would give you right now is, you know, pick an industry that you're passionate about. It's really easy to excel when you enjoy and know certain products and services. So I started off in a retail store environment as a store manager, selling mobile phones at a time when the industry was booming. I spent 5 years there really on the coalface, learning about the customer, learning about how to sell the right products and services, understanding the importance of hitting targets. You know, it was fast paced, it was competitive, it was learning what the competition are doing and really getting a great understanding of who that customer is. And as things moved on, I then moved into a retail implementation role. So this was really where I jumped on the back of a huge retail revolution in the telecommunications market. Company I worked for at the time was One-to-One, that had just been taken over by T-Mobile. And really there was a retail revolution journey to transform the culture and the customer experience. And this was really about accelerating that retail footprint. It was around customer journeys. It was around how do customers shop? What is important to them? You know, when they buy a product, they don't want to just look at a plastic phone that's a replication. It was around interactivity. And this was where I was able to really bring that experience of user experience, but also coupling that up with the customer experience. The next role was arguably, I guess, my first transition into a technology role. And this is where I was a system support manager. I had a small team. We were the front door for any kind of small business change that needed some IT support and guidance. And in that role, which I did for about 18 months, this is where I really focused on how to solve problems. Now, some of these problems were very small problems. Some of them just required business processing. Some of them just required, you know, a small IT change. But it's in that particular role that I learned where I had the skills in ultimately being that kind of the glue that bridges that business requirement and the IT technical deliverability. The fourth role that I kind of took, again, this is probably where I started really firming up my passion around technology. And that's where I moved into the role of an incident process manager. And this was an IT role. And at the time, this is where the concept of outsourcing became quite big in telecommunications. And we just made the decision to outsource our IT service desk. And this role really, I guess, was defining for me because it was pivotal, yet again, about bringing business and technology together. But also, it was really around my first introduction to all of that external skills that exist in the industry and recognition that you can't do it alone. And here it was all around service. It was around system stability. You know, when a system goes down, you have got customers that are immediately impacted. You know, it was fast paced, it was pressured, it was, you know, really about managing a very complicated ecosystem. And during that time, I think this is where I kind of started to create my own brand. And my brand at the time was more around, I cared passionately about the customer. I was really excited about transformation programs. And actually, it was the partnering piece as well that really resonated with me. And during that time, it was also around starting to understand what your measurement of success are. And it was around, how do you measure customer satisfaction? How do you reduce the time it takes for you to restore a critical system so your customers can use the services? And how do you, you know, again, prevent those repeatable incidents happening again? And it was during that time, I think, that there was a certain amount of recognition around my career. I was nominated for an IT leadership program. And actually, what that then translated into my passion for also giving back. This was my first opportunity where I then pulled together an engagement team. We delivered a program called Be the Best You Can, which, you know, was really just about bringing everybody onto that same kind of positive, take control for your own career. And I think, you know, as it kind of moved forward, the next role I took again was the result of another change in the industry. At the time, T-Mobile and Orange, two big brands, merged and became Everything Everywhere, most commonly known as EE today. And this again introduced an even bigger ecosystem across both brands. And in that role that I took of a service assurance manager, I then became accountable for the outsourced partners and all of the services that they provided for us. And again, during that year, it was consolidation, it was creating new, it was transforming our core ITIL processes for incident, problem, and change, and bringing together two telco brands, but ultimately ensuring that the business just doesn't break. And at that point, it was around the importance of learning and using our partners, bringing in new skill sets, using best practice, and really starting to apply that. And then perhaps one of the most important roles, I guess, that I want to just talk to you about was the 11 years I spent in partner management. And this is probably where I learned the most in my career. And this was around vendor management as a concept, importance of good contracting, being clear on requirements, roles, responsibility, negotiating. And it was at that time that BT then came and acquired EE. So yet again, another big organizational change. It was during that period that I not only became great colleagues and friends with Cognizant, but it's around how I matured my thinking here, around the concept of creating value, around using data to drive insights, to constantly improve services. And I learned so much in that role. This was around, you know, introducing things like budget management, cost transformation, how to foster and build a culture of continuous improvement. And I guess, you know, very recently, because this was only 6 months ago, you know, at the height of my career, I guess, I look back and I think, wow, at that point, I was responsible for £200 million worth of budget. You know, I was responsible for 164 software partners, overseeing 300 contract renewals per year. And I look back and I think, how did I get there? You know, sometimes there is a innate fear that a lot of us have, and some of you may know that concept of imposter syndrome, where you almost kind of sit there and go, I don't know, you know, I'm amazed at the responsibility that I've got. And, you know, this is really around having self-belief and building up that support network that Charlotte previously talked about. And it was that kind of recognition that I thought, this is my time to now push. This is the time to push into a new role. And again, through my networks, I then basically took on very recently a brand new role. And this is around a chapter area lead for the solution architects in BT. And this is another exciting role. It's at the start of a BT transformational journey once again. So I am back right at the bottom of a new learning journey. And this is really where I've moved out of a role of being subject matter expert into, almost being a kind of novice. And it's my job now to work with new sets of people, new sets of processes, new ways of working, and look at how we are now going to build that capability for the future, simplification around all of our architecture, looking at different techniques to solve problems using human-centered design, and massive amounts of collaboration in a kind of agile way of working. So I guess I'm very early on this new journey, but one thing that I do want to say is that I'm hoping to kind of bring all of those previous experiences and learnings to this role.
Thank you.
So I'd just like to finish with 3 quick wrap-ups points, if I may. And that is, number 1, have self-belief and learn from others. Know that, the phrase I used a lot was, I may not be good at this right now, but I will learn to be great at it. Embrace and normalize change, because one thing, change is constant, and make sure that you build that network around you, because support is going to be critical for you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Becky. What I took from you is listening to your career is, first of all, really actually companies are helping employees to develop, because the investment BT did in your IT leadership skills. So clearly companies will also help employees and, as colleagues, to develop their careers. The range of roles which you, again, in your career already, and you're not finished, displayed from IT support to vendor management, to integrating companies, to driving business transformation, really, again, I think shows the breadth of what technology jobs are out there. And the last one, really, the change in industry and change in businesses are helping us to drive our careers to a certain extent, because we are surrounded, the technology industry and telecommunication industry is surrounded by change. And again, I think what I heard from you is that helped to shape your career or where you are. So I think that's 3 points perhaps also for everybody listening to take away. Companies will help, and the industry is driving our careers while we speak. And Becky, again, like for Charlotte, we have a question recorded for you. So here's your question.
Right.
Hi, I'm Thomas, a student at Bataan Peninsula State University. And my question for Miss Becky is, could you tell us about the time when you had to make a work-related decision without all the information you needed?
Gosh, so there's no easy way to say this, but I would probably say that scenario happens to me at least twice, if not 3 times every single day. And that is simply because we are not superhuman. No one person can have the answers to everything. And this, again, is, why I believe so passionately in not having a very hierarchical approach, because very often the people with the answers are the people on the coalface doing the jobs. Managers don't have those answers all the time. So what I always try to do when I'm making a decision is make sure I've got the right people to go and ask and seek counsel for. So generally speaking, most of my decisions tend to be ones where I've sought out collaboration in that space. And then very much it's based on what is the impact to the customer, what is the risk to the business, and what is the impact of either of those options in terms of the decision that I would then go forward and make. So unfortunately, it's not a specific example, but I hope that kind of gives you a flavour really of how you would approach that.
Very true. Team sport. And again, Charlotte said it already. We are, as leaders or managers, we are just as good as our team. So I now really thank you very much, Becky. It was really interesting to hear how your career developed. Over to Padma for a quick Zoom poll, which Padma, over to you.
Thank you, Ursula. Thank you, Becky. I know you're all raring to ask us speakers questions, but first, we have a question for you. So we want to hear from you. There's going to be a pop-up question quiz on your screen. And if it's a class of students, teacher, you can ask your students and you can answer for them. You can pick one or more answers for this. The question for you is, can we have the question out there, please? Which would be your dream job? If somebody had asked me this when I was in school, I don't think it was anything related to what I'm doing today, but I think we have heard from 2 speakers. We're going to hear from 3 more, but I'm sure you already have a strong, oh, wow, that's incredible level of response. All of this is such a varied industry, and there is so much going on in each. All of that is going through transformation. I'm surprised. I thought social media influencer will be quite high, because that's, I think every student I've spoken to, and my daughter, she's 13 years, and everyone wants to be a social media influencer at that age. But it's such a hard task, isn't it? 30 more seconds, and then we will go to see what the final results are. It's surprising, communications and media, that is really ranking at the top. Becky, it looks like you have had an influence on them, so the communications is catching up there. So good to see a lot of creative artists out there who are pursuing the A part of STEAM. Okay, that's it. Can we, and the final results, if we can close the poll, let's see what our final results are. So what future technologies do we have here? So we have communications and media at the top, which is fantastic, followed by entrepreneurs. We definitely need more entrepreneurs, right? We need social entrepreneurs. We need people thinking tangentially, bringing in new services. And this is a great time to do it. We have following that, we have engineers. Great. Yes, we love engineers. I'm an engineer. I'm slightly partial to that. And then we have the creative artists. Create space. The creativity space is completely influenced by technology now. So which is a great blend. I love the idea. So we bring in students to do these activities where they can be virtual or digital artists. And it's amazing to see how much of technology, it is kind of putting them on steroids, the way the creative industry is booming with the technology empowerment. And followed by, we have the social media influencer, then the healthcare professional. Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us. And given this fantastic spread of jobs or careers we talked about, who best to tell us about tech industry itself? I would like to call upon Ursula to share her journey and her views on how technology is changing the overall industry. Over to you, Ursula.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that my profession was not on the I must say, on the list. I wanted, when I was young, to be in the circus. So, Padma, we need to adjust our questions here. So talking, really just probably reflecting on a career into which I did fall. I must admit, big confession, I never set out to be global president of growth markets, i.e., a very senior business leader in the technology industry when I was making my career decision, or even my decisions at school. And probably the big first decision I needed to do was, what do I study? In Germany, when you study, whatever you study leads to your career. I loved history, I loved languages, I loved traveling, I loved sports. And in Germany, then, I thought, oh, let's study history, let's study languages. Problem with that idea was you can become a teacher or journalist. And having two parents as teachers, that job was, too much, didn't want to do that. Didn't really think I would be a journalist. Thinking also, what pays my bills at the end of the day? So I clearly always knew I wanted to earn a bit of money. And so my uncle recommended me to study business, because he said, with business, you can travel the world. You don't have to yet make a decision, because business jobs are such a variety. And there I went and started to study business. And the subject I really loved was organizational theory and organizational design. So how do you structure, organize companies? And I just loved it, which for those of you who study technology is one of the most fluffy subjects you could study in business. But that's where I came across the topic of technology very early. How does technology actually influence the performance of a company? And that really got me interested. And I had then the opportunity I did make the opportunity to study in Canada. And again, I will talk about my love of travel and why that was influencing my career so much in a bit. So I ended then up studying in Canada. And again, I learned about information systems and data and how that is used for management reporting. And that clearly was one of the, that's where I thought that's really interesting. And that really studying in Canada, was really actually the stepping stone into my first role, because I came back, finished my German degree, and York University had made me the offer and say, you can come back to finish your MBA, but you can only do it in 9 months. So I had kind of 9 months to kill. And I was thinking, what do you do in 9 months? No big company will hire you and give you a job. So the PhD, somebody at university recommended me that startup. And I started working in, probably looking back, in one of the coolest times in technology, where the laptop, who is really, which you guys take for granted, the laptop was just invented, was just being used in businesses and used by the sales force. It was a really expensive piece of equipment. And that's how I, no technology experience, just business. I learned, how to do a business analyst, how to be a project manager, and then how to become a manager in a software startup, which was sold to SAP in the late 90s. And that's really how I came into technology, from I need to kill 9 months, don't know what to do, no big company hires me, but a startup would do. And looking back is really, and from then on, my career really was shaped by, I want to travel, I want to be abroad, I want to always learn, I want to have something new, I want to manage people. Don't ask me why. That is one of the things I really enjoy. And I want to make organizations better. And from there, from that startup, I went with a startup to the UK. From there to a consultancy, because I wanted to see the range of things, companies are doing, and helping companies to form and shape their businesses. And from that, really ended up in the, and we were sold to IT, to a big IT services player. So again, like you heard from Charlotte and from Becky, my career was shaped by circumstances, shaped by opportunities. I probably grabbed those opportunities when they came along. And my passion of helping companies to perform, using technology for ourselves, but also for our customers, is clearly still one of the things which drives me and excites me. And just what technology is now doing to businesses is incredible. We think about online shopping, think about automation. Many jobs now will be automated. So we will be able to, you have chatbots, you have voice bots, you have artificial intelligence where technology will tell customers what is the right decision making. And every job, and even, we saw communication and media. I know marketing is one of the most favorite, job destinations in the UK. You cannot be in marketing without understanding technology. All marketing campaigns are nowadays digital. We are measuring customer satisfaction, customer experience, all about a digital experience. And again, so there is no company at the moment in the industry where technology is not fundamentally changing the way how they're doing business. And so think about healthcare. You had healthcare professionals there. I'm today looking here in Poland, looking at startups and companies who are investing. For example, one of the companies is taking ESG, data, images, medical images, X-rays, and really using technology, artificial intelligence, to help doctors to identify disease more precisely and faster. Another, one of the startups is looking at how do I use, again, artificial intelligence, or taking videos of pigs in a farm and identify disease. So there is no, and what I love about technology is the real range of what we can do. And even if you don't end up in the technology industry, I would argue that any future job you have will involve an understanding of technology, be it, HR, be it marketing, and therefore you cannot go wrong with having technology and a technology understanding in your career, whether you study that, or whether, like you heard from Charlotte, Becky, and myself, we did just fall into the technology industry, and it clearly has done us very well. And so I can really only recommend for you guys and girls to really join us and join the industry. It's a fantastic career basis and foundation for your future. So back to you, Padma.
Thank you, Ursula. I always wanted to hear your journey, so this was a great opportunity for me too. So we have a question for you as well from a student. Can we play the video, please?
I'm Sanskriti Patil, a student at Santamai Junior College, Pune. And my question for Ursula is, have you ever faced any professional barriers? And if so, how did you overcome them?
Thank you for the question. And I think we probably all have tough times in our careers where you think, oh my God, this is not going well. But I remember at projects, IT projects, which really went really horrible, wrong, and where I actually even, and if I look back, whenever things go wrong, it's the biggest learning. And therefore, when things go wrong, I always would say, I learned from that, and I take that, and it gives me experience and it makes me better the next time. Not saying that is particularly fun, but I have not met anybody in business who is senior who didn't have their things, haven't had things going wrong for them. And therefore, when things go wrong from you, always step back and think, what do I learn from that? So thank you very much for that video, and thank you very much for letting me share. we have now Michelle joining us and giving us an overview. Michelle Prance from NatWest Group. Michelle is clearly financial services, banking industry. So Michelle, over to you. I know that you had, again, an amazing career focused around customer experience. So excited to hear from you.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ursula. And I've got a lot of work to do to convince you about financial services being only 11% of people interested in it. And Padma, maybe my influence is working with my daughter, because she wants to be a woman in business. She's also 13, so no social media blogger for her. Thank goodness. Hi, everyone. And, thank you very much for joining us today. I feel super privileged that there are people that might be interested in my story, because I think about my story sometimes as a series of accidental mishaps. But of course, I've been hugely successful and hugely lucky. So very, very thankful for all those things. As Ursula said, I'm the Director of Customer Journey Performance at NatWest Group. That pretty much means that every time a customer wants to do something with us as a bank, that means we look at how the experience is for those customers. And when I talk about customers, that could be students like yourselves who are dealing with NatWest either through student loans or perhaps savings or current accounts that you might have. It might be, in my case, it's my children. My children have a bank account. I want them to learn about how to spend money, how to save money, how interest and things like that work. It's also about parents and carers who will be in employment and getting paid and paying all the bills. And it's also with companies, and companies might be small companies. They might be entrepreneurs. We mentioned those earlier in terms of lots of people wanting to be entrepreneurs, but it also might be, big global corporates, and Cognizant is a big global corporate with lots of people, but everybody and, a lot of what we do in society is impacted by financial services. I always put financial services and financial health up there with physical health and mental health, because quite often when things are not going well in your finances, then that can have a knock-on impact in your relationships, in your own mental health and physical well-being. So I put financial health up there and understanding how these things work and making sure you're saving for your future as one of those things that's equally important for us when we're talking about health. I, like most of you, had a pretty ordinary childhood. You'd probably gathered from my accent. I grew up in Australia. I went across to university. I was the first person in my family to go to university. Both my parents left school at the age of 14. So maybe a little bit like you, Ursula, I think, they were sort of wondering, what on earth would a girl be doing going off to university? I started doing science, so I was, reasonably attracted to some of the STEM subjects, but I dropped out pretty quickly because it was probably not what I was looking for, not what I was interested in. And then I would just come back from a course where I was being taught to be a perfume seller in a department store. I'm sure all of you have seen them either as you're walking through the airport or you've gone to the department store. I went to a course where they spoke to me about how I could spray the perfumes around and people could feel the different notes, and how I could coerce people over to the counter to wear perfume. And a girl that I was living with said, got to be a lot of easier things in life, and you should go back to uni because it would be a lot easier if you did that. I did. I went back to university and I studied and finished my economics degree. So I started science but finished with an economics degree. After that, I'd been studying for quite a while, as you could imagine, sort of having those bumpy rides through university. And so I took off from Australia, and all my clothes were on my back in my backpack. And I traveled around the world, mostly working in bars and clubs. I traveled through some of the parts of the country that you're from today. I have some fantastic and fond memories of traveling through Asia, of working in Japan, etc. But ending up here in the UK, and that's where I am today. I sort of put it down to the fact that I didn't have a real job, like a proper job in financial services, till I was 28. I look back on that and I go, well, that's probably the day I grew up. So quite a different, from Charlotte, who might have joined the graduate program. Very, very different. I prided myself on being able to pack up all my clothes in my backpack and go home at any point in time that I wanted. Charlotte spoke about jigsaws, and I think about, all of these experiences being dots that you join up. So my first break into financial services was through chatting to a friend late night in a bar, as you do. And she introduced me to the COO of Credit Suisse. And for some reason, they decided that they might take a chance on me. So I moved from bars and clubs and over to Credit Suisse. One of the things I would take from that is be open to opportunities, because you never know what little opportunity is going to be there. The other thing is be super comfortable with having no idea. So I had no idea what asset management was. My parents, when I grew up, thought that banking was where you went and deposited your money and you took out your housing loan. I had no idea that there were people who managed other people, like rich people's money, and they did that for a living and made fees from it. Technology wasn't so much of a part of that, and it was. So, one of my jobs was to take trades from the traders and write those onto pieces of paper. And then I would run those bits of paper up to the trading desk, which was quite scary with all of their screens up. And I would then go and file those and make sure that they had gone to the right places. And the next day I'd make sure that actually it had gone through and the trades had settled. That was around about the year 2000. And I know that none of you are old enough to know what a scary thing what we called Y2K was. Engineers in the 90s, because storage, unbelievable now because we have cloud storage everywhere, was at a premium and storage was really costly. So when engineers were coding into all of the systems, instead of putting 4 digits for the year, like 2021, they shortened that to just 2 digits. So as we came up to 1999, everyone was really scared in the industry that on the 1st of January on the year 2000, and the code would become 00, that all the computer systems around the world would think that it was 1900. Now, when you're in a bank or a financial institution like I was, we were really scared that all of a sudden we'd be paying interest for the last almost 100 years on things that had been borrowed. So we were really worried that actually we were going to be calculating negative interest. But there are other things and other people who were scared about Y2K. And, that might have been power stations. It might have been nuclear. We used to talk about nuclear, and maybe one of those things might go off if the computer systems went into meltdown. So even though in asset management, I was writing tickets and sending those off, already I could start to see that technology and digital, was having a place. Charlotte mentioned jigsaw. I talk about connected dots. I was in a coffee shop one day having a chat with a friend of mine. My father was just about to retire. He was wondering what he was going to do with his pension money, and he started asking me about Warren Buffett. So all of a sudden, a man who'd worked in road construction all his life is wondering what he's going to do with his small pension and asking me about Warren Buffett. I didn't know a lot about Warren Buffett. What I did know was that at that time, and a lot of you would have heard of places like Robinhood, but people who wanted to manage their own money and make investments into stocks and shares, that was only really the privilege of really wealthy people who had brokerage accounts and had brokers. And so this ability for you to be able to, as a regular person, make investments and trade in different opportunities wasn't there. And through that networking and that coffee, I ended up working in trading. I worked in derivatives and I worked in electronic trading. And that really took off in the early 2000s. Now, I wasn't a trader. I wasn't a coder, so I didn't work on the technology part, but you can see how technology is a huge enabler of that. And we can see where places like Robinhood are today. I then stepped out of that led on to an opportunity to go work in a fintech. And this fintech was looking at voice recording. It was in 2012. For those of you that were around in 2012, Siri was not very good in 2012. It is a lot better now, but Siri had a long way to go. But what we thought was if we could use voice recordings and then be able to find all of the key words, we'd be able to make things like trading and financial services, advice when you're getting a mortgage, a lot safer. So I didn't do any of the coding, and I definitely didn't do any of the voice recognition. But the jobs that I had to do was some of the hiring, so building the team. We mentioned that earlier. I had to build a website. That was very interesting. Luckily, the internet's around, so you can draw those things off the internet. I had to talk to customers about what are the sorts of things that they would buy. So I'd be in talking to financial institutions about what they were. And I even learned how to patent something, so register it so that actually no one could copy it. And I had to do those things. None of those things I'd done before. So I was reasonably comfortable with being uncomfortable. And through my network, and we've mentioned networks earlier, I took an opportunity and that paid off. I had lots of fun in that startup. That startup is still going. The technology has matured and it's working really well. I then was attracted, and through that probably to Lloyd's Banking Group and transformation. So digital technology, transformation, all of these things are going hand in hand. And I remember the COO of the bank at that time. She said to me, "What do you know about transaction banking? All you've ever done in your life is sort of trading derivatives and FX." And I said to her, "Do you know what? Banking must be the same as FX. It's all about making sure the prices are available, the internet, the systems, everything is up." Luckily for me, she took a punt on me and she said, "Okay, you know, this girl does know a little bit about banking. We'll hire her." Those sorts of opportunities come up because of either networking or taking those opportunities. Being curious. When I was back at Credit Suisse and I didn't know anything about trading, I remember going to buy a book on financial terms. And I remember, you know, at night reading away at those to make sure that I understood, or at least I could speak the lingo. Sometimes it's about speaking the lingo.
Yeah, no, but I must say, Michelle, I really loved the way how you laid out your career. You laid it out there, and oh my God, year 2K memory lane for anybody in the IT industry. And Padma messaged us and said that's how she came to Cognizant. So clearly an influential time. And again, it just, I think what I loved about you, what I heard from you is taking a job even if you don't know the content, because as employers or companies often really love the personality, the potential of a personality, less the specific, you know, knowledge which we are bringing, which is valuable, but often it's really how we are doing the jobs and the potential we can bring. So I think that is coming out in your career big time. So, but the question for Ms. Michelle now, the video question.
Hello, my name is June and I'm a student at Oscar International School. My question for Michelle is, do you think your company's technological advancement and developments will affect the jobs of the next couple of decades?
Well, June, thank you so much for an awesome question. It absolutely will. You know, banking started in the 18th century, well, even before that, in terms of that, and we talk about Dutch East India Company, but letters of credit in terms of, you know, being able to make payments between people is still happening today, and we still have those trade agreements. But I see technology changing that, because at the moment, a lot of those things are written down on pieces of paper. In the future, it will be IoT devices that track those items that are moving around the globe. It'll be blockchain, where we make the transactions secure so that we don't have to make them through a bank. We may even be 3D printing all of our sort of things onshore, so we don't have to rely on big tankers to get stuck in the Suez Canal to move things around. We could 3D print them. In retail banking, we talk about, you know, chatbots, recommendations. How do we make you more financially secure? How do we integrate, you know, humans and create hybrid people that can help you? So absolutely, June, there are a plethora of different combinations of technologies which are impacting financial services. And there are so many problems to solve. What we need is, you know, entrepreneurial, different thinkers, people who are ready to take some chances to come in and help us solve them.
Thank you very much. Really good question, because again, the world is changing and work is changing. I think research is showing that there is no job which is being untouched by technology. So final speaker, but and I'm really delighted that we have finally somebody who studied technology and or engineering joining the talks. Helen is a Master of Engineering from the University of Cambridge and is now a Senior Vehicle Dynamics Engineer. I love that title, with Aston Martin Cognizant Formula One team. Which we have the pleasure to work with. So Helen, over to you. I think somebody who studied technology, really interested to hear about your career.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for inviting me to talk today about my career and how I got into Formula One. As you said, I am a Senior Vehicle Dynamics Engineer at Aston Martin Cognizant Formula One team. And I've worked in Formula One for around about 12 years, just over 12 years now. Today, I would like to talk about what it's like to work in Formula One, what STEM careers we have available, because we actually have quite a number of different STEM careers in Formula One, and also how important the technology is to us when we're trying to win races. So not all of you will be familiar with Formula One as a sport. It is a motorsport, a single seater series where each team designs their own car. There are 10 teams that compete in the World Championship. Each have 2 drivers, and we race this year over 22 races. Next year it'll be 23 races, with races happening on a Sunday. We all compete to win each race, but ultimately to win the constructors or the drivers' world championships, and both if you really can. That would be the ultimate goal. Aston Martin as a team is actually quite a new team. We became Aston Martin just this year, and we're a growing team. So we're on the smaller side still amongst other teams on the grid, but we have, to give you an idea of the size, there's 580 employees. So that is a lot of people to design 2 cars that go round the tracks, especially considering we're on the smaller side. Aston Martin itself, we're based just by the track in Silverstone in the UK. And here we design and manufacture the Formula One car. There are a huge range of STEM jobs at Aston Martin Formula One team, from designers, aerodynamicists, got race engineers, software developers. Software developers actually being very key. We design a lot of in-house software ourselves, and just a huge range of different areas where lots of people are very specialized in what they do. How did I get into Formula One? I am very lucky because it has always been my dream to work in Formula One. I loved motorsport as a child, and I can remember being in my French class at school where you were saying, what dream career did you have? And my answer was always, I want to work in Formula One. So I feel very privileged that I've actually managed to make it and do what I wanted to do at school. How did I get here? So I started off with work experience when I was at high school. I did work experience with a World Rally team. So a different form of motorsport, but still very similar. And that's kind of cemented that this really was what I wanted to do as a career. So I went and studied engineering at university. And there I was very involved with Formula Student, which is a student competition to design a single-seater car. So similar to what we do now in the Formula One team, but a little bit simpler on a student level. And my master's thesis at university was with Formula One's governing body. So that gave me a great insight and my first taste of actual Formula One technology. Finishing university, after I graduated, I started with my very first job in Formula One. I started with a 6-month placement as a student engineer in the research and development department of one of the Formula One teams. And basically, I have worked in Formula One ever since. So in a number of different roles, different teams. I spent 3 years as a trackside engineer, going to all of the races and the tests. But now I am in a factory-based role at Aston Martin. And I have been here just over 2 years. So it is a really great place to work with everybody that is working for the same goal. We all have a very specific target, which is to win races. So it's always nice when you've got a very clear goal, and you also get feedback a lot because you have a race every weekend. So you know if you're doing well or if you're not doing so well. What is my job at Aston Martin? So I am in the vehicle performance group, which is an engineering group where we have a focus on all areas of performance of the car that are not to do with aerodynamics or powertrain. So you're thinking things like suspension, brakes, steering, and just generally, how do we develop the car and what ideas do we want to go down in order to get the best performance on track? I use simulation extensively in my work. We have, as I said before, our own in-house software, and this allows us to do our own in-house simulations of how the car will behave on track on our own desktops or laptops. And then we can also, in addition to this, we can use our driver in the loop simulator where a driver is using our vehicle model in order to test different items on the track, all virtually. In addition to this simulation work, we also as a department provide track support from mission control, and that's all at the factory. And this is because basically there's now Formula One cars are so complicated, there is no way that you can do all of the checks and all of the optimization you want in a weekend from the track. You're also limited on the number of people that you're allowed to send to the track. So part of my role is to provide that support from the factory, where I check that the suspension is working as we intended, that we're getting the performance that we intended, and that we are getting that everything is working as we want at the track.
I think especially the last roles you had, I mean, first of all, I'm delighted finally to have somebody here on the panel who dreamt about being in technology and in Formula One, which is extreme sport and extreme technology, and who actually set out to be an engineer. So that's really amazing to see. And again, it shows you there is so many ways into this industry. But can I ask you to wrap up, and then please, and then any final words, and then the student questions would be it will be played to you.
Yeah, of course. So I think probably the final bit that I just would like to emphasize is how important technology is to us. Without technology, we can't be the fastest on track. So we're constantly looking to exploit new technologies in Formula One. And I think that's really exciting. And hopefully that gives a lot of exciting careers for everybody that's listening in today. And I'm excited to hear the question.
Hi, I'm Boy El Katigbak, a student at National U, Laguna, Philippines, and my question for Helen is, what was the first ever project you worked on for Aston Martin?
Oh, that is a good question. So I have quite a technological role, and so I'll try and not make it too complicated. But my first project was to specify the anti-roll bars for the car for the next season. So for those of you that don't know what an anti-roll bar is, it's a spring that provides the stiffness when a car rolls. So when you go through a corner, a car rolls, and the anti-roll bars provide the stiffness. And so my project was to have a look at what we used at the moment, what stiffnesses we currently had on the car, and then to see how the new car, the characteristics of it were different, and how we might want to do something different, and if there were any different stiffnesses that we needed. So it involved a lot of data analysis, reviewing past data, running simulations of the new car model, and then all of this you pass on to designers. So there's also, I work quite a lot with other people within the team in order to get the most out of the project. It's a team sport. Not just the people that you see at the track, but all of the other people at the factory, the hundreds of people at the factory, we all work together.
Yeah, thank you for that answer, Helen. Because, and again, I think it draws out that how important for Aston Martin, Cognizant Formula One, actually data is, data analysis, using all technologies. I think even more in future. Artificial intelligence, virtual, also digital, what we call the digital twins, analyzing, modeling, simulating actually car behavior, virtually. And I think that will become more important. I'm becoming expert slowly as well about Formula One next year. There will be cost cap, there will be a limit how much the teams can spend on running the team, and technology or software technology will become more important because things can be less tested, less physical, because that's more expensive. And I think virtual testing things, simulating things in Formula One will become more and more important. So indeed, there will be many exciting roles from a technology and a software technology perspective in Formula One. So thank you for that. Padma, so I think you have heard 5 different careers. It hopefully has shown you all the range. It has shown you from deep engineering knowledge, which Helen is displaying, to IT support roles, moving into consultancy roles, business transformation roles, financial, really financial services, asset management, FX exchange, all having important technology aspects, which I think, coming back to the future of work question we heard by one of the students raised, as really shaping how we will do business and how we all will work in the future. So Padma, back to you.
Thank you, Ursula. It was fantastic hearing all the speakers. So for the rapid fire question, the first question is best technology invention of the century and why? And that is to Helen.
Oh, that is a good question. I think I have to pick my mobile phone just because I use it all the time. It probably too much, but it has completely changed how our lives work. Being able to contact people and being able to look at any information whenever you want.
Absolutely. Also a disruption in our life, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The next one is the place that you would like to travel to and why, and this is to Ursula.
I mean, professionally, my where I really would love to go is India. I haven't been since I joined Cognizant, visited India. We have 200,000 of our 300,000 employees are in India, and I haven't really had a chance to meet all our colleagues. So that's professionally. Privately, there's a long list I have. I have at least 20, I'm keeping track of where I want to go. And Galapagos Island is high on my list of places to visit. So in as a nature-friendly, climate-friendly way that is possible, knowing that we are disturbing a very, very rare habitat when we are visiting.
Thank you, Ursula. The next one, when you're not working, you are over to Charlotte.
Well, I mean, I'm running around after my children when I'm not doing that. I love swimming, hiking, running, but I try and go swimming before work, which is one good outcome of the current situation. I managed to, get to the pool at about 6:30 in the morning, and then I can be back at my virtual desk, by about 7:30 or 8. So yes, kids and sport wherever I can fit it in.
So some literal running and then running after kids. So
that's
something
it.
around that. Okay. If a movie was made on your life, what would it be called and why? And this is to Becky.
Hi, well, that's very easy because I would probably call my movie Shopaholic at Christmas, because I am hugely a fan of the Christmas season, and I very much enjoy shopping. So that
you must be thrilled because it looks like Christmas has come early this year, isn't it? The shops are full of Christmas stuff already before Halloween.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you. One gadget that you wish didn't exist and why? And this would be to Michelle.
Okay, one gadget. I mean, there's lots of useless gadgets. You only have to look inside the App Store to see how many useless apps there are. One innovation, because I get sick of innovation for innovation's sake, is something called the Notifly. The most amazing thing about it is its name. It's effectively an IoT device that sits inside your zipper, and it will alert you if your fly accidentally comes down. Completely useless, and I hope I don't see it ever go into production, but apologies to anybody who might have invented it, but I don't think we need one of these.
Didn't even know something existed, but I can imagine what would have inspired the person to do that. If you are not in the corporate world, you would be Ursula?
Clearly a circus princess. No, I clearly my dream. I would. The other career choice contemplating was joining diplomatic service to travel the world.
So both the jobs are rooted from traveling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Tell us a hobby that you're passionate about, Becky.
I have got two hobbies really. One, I love party planning. I love a good fancy dress themed party. And more recently, I've really got into gardening. And in my spare time, which isn't a lot, as I've got 3 children as well, I have taken up a garden design course as well.
Wow, and I'm sure you also enjoy doing the birthday party.
Yes.
One last question. The industry leader who is your idol, Helen.
Okay, so this I would have to pick James Allison. You probably haven't heard of him, but he is the Chief Technical Officer at a rival Formula One team, Mercedes Formula One team. And I was really lucky to work with him. He was my one of my first technical directors, and he was so encouraging as a young student starting in a new career, and everybody like they had an important role to play within the team, and I really look up to how he runs a Formula One team.
Thank you, Helen. I think for many of us, our idols are usually people who were our mentors or guides or whom we looked up to when we started off our careers, or who made a big difference to our career generally. Thank you so much. So that was a rapid fire question. And now we're opening up the floor for questions from our students. How do they see careers in tech industry? Would any of you would like to pick up in how it works in yours? For example, if they have, is there a particular technology skill that is sought after? Because students only hear about Python, Java, etc., but many of you have come across careers without a tech background. So, Ursula,
I'm happy to. I can kick off, and others could add. I mean, I think it's really important. And someone made this point, and apologies, it may have been Becky or it may have been one of the other fantastic speakers, but made this point around actually, if you're passionate around what you're doing, you are more likely to be successful. So I would say, firstly, there's a really important point about researching and looking into companies and organizations that inspire you and that you think have a really good story to tell. Because I think what people often forget is they think it's all about the companies choosing, and actually it's a bi-directional, negotiation, because companies have to attract people and want people to come. And you have to think about what interests you, what industries do you find interesting, which companies are the leading companies. Actually, is it that you want to learn about lots of different companies? Then consulting and Cognizant would probably be a fantastic place for you to go. If there are particular industries, do your research and then understand, are those companies offering graduate schemes? What are the opportunities? How do you get connected? Do you know anyone at the company? Again, LinkedIn is a fantastic resource, for going in and identifying networks. So I do think there's a point around familiarizing yourself. I mean, I thought it was fantastic to hear Helen, who is so driven, sorry, pardon the pun, Helen, but you're so focused on that sector. It's brilliant. So she knew where she wanted to focus her efforts and where she wanted to go. Some of us aren't as lucky to be so clear on that process, and so actually might have to do a bit more research to identify organizations that will fit with us and our personal motivations and our values. So just my initial thoughts.
I think there was, following that, I think the question also, how do you practically start with it? Most companies have websites and they have two type of entry level, probably 2 or 3 type of entry level jobs you can ask for. First of all, you can ask for summer placement. Many companies are taking students in for a week, for 4 weeks, and give you a sneak preview of what it is to be in this company. So the second one is actually graduates or learning and studying while working. In some parts of the world, that's quite common. So as an apprentice, you join the company, or as an intern, you join the company, and the company is teaching you, is allowing you to go to study while you're working. And the third one is graduate jobs, where you have done your university degree and then you just apply for a job. That said, even if you don't have a university degree, in some countries it becomes much more common that you also can apply, without a university degree, and they teach you as you go. So and all of the companies will have that information available on the internet. But as Charlotte was saying as well, look LinkedIn. You will see companies being active on LinkedIn, and if you don't know LinkedIn is kind of the Facebook for professionals, which I know is, and therefore that's where you would see me being online, you would see us promoting jobs, and that's where you can get in contact. So you have The internet, or sorry, the website of the company and LinkedIn are probably your best starting points to get connected.
The next question is from Nitisha. What are the industry level skills required for a student to become successful in their career? What does an industry expect besides just a qualification? Once they come in, how do they succeed in the industry?
I'll take that one if you like. So I think the important skills for me, especially working in Formula One team, are being able to work in a team, being able to work with other people, to be able to discuss things, to be able to express your ideas, and to be dedicated, but also very willing to learn, and to be accepting that you might not you're not going to have a role that you do the same thing every day. You're going to have to be flexible, and you might have to make a decision in a rush, but you're able to do this. And I think they're all skills that you can develop as a student when you're doing projects at school, projects at university, and so teamwork, I would say, is the most important to me.
Yeah,
And I was just going to add to that, Helen. Absolutely. I think one of the things, and we mentioned it earlier, go to those things that give you energy, that you're really passionate about. If you double down on those things, you'll be super successful. The other route in is quite often through apprenticeships, and apprenticeships give you this grounding, this understanding, this exploration. And when we talk about people living to 100, 120, we talk about the fact that they're going to change careers like 5 or 6 times. So that ability to be open to learning, to try new things, is all about finding what you're good at, what you like in terms of that. So apprenticeships is a good way, talking to people in different industries like you are today, chatting to us about the different roles. We see lots of opportunities for designers who think differently from perhaps engineers, and how we bring those people together. So lots of different opportunities, not just in coding and technology, but almost how do you bring some of those things together in a more empathetic way so we can deliver and design services for humans.
Thank you, Michelle. Thanks, Helen. It's totally relevant. I think a lot of the skills that we look for in the industry is what you do develop right from school and university, and the way we work with other people, teamwork, and resilience. I think something which Charlotte has brought in, which is quite hard to accept failure. But then, as Ursula said, most of us, I think, had a career growth, or we learned and we moved forward after we learned from a bad experience. So the resilience is a very important factor to survive, thrive, and succeed in any industry you choose. We have a question for Michelle Prance. How could we invest correctly, and have you invested in bad misses? How do you deal with it? Does decision, good or bad, can lead to bad outcome? This is from Daniel.
Yeah, well, I can't give any trading advice. I've made some good ones and some bad ones in my time, Daniel. I think the key thing is never invest any money that you can't afford to, because stocks go up and stocks go down. So never ever think that it's the one thing that's going to be the silver bullet to make that. And something about resilience. So as long as you haven't invested everything, make sure you've got some resilience, some sustainable capital that's behind you. But no, and make sure you do your homework. Don't leverage yourself. Make sure you do your homework if you're going to do that. Otherwise, I would leave it to professionals.
That's a really good question, and thanks, Michelle, for the answer, because as you said, the financial health is matters a lot for mental health, physical health, and all of that. And students asking these questions is a great way to lead up to that they're thinking about the right things. There's a question from Maybeen Yuklan who says, what if someone doesn't have a financial background but interested in finance roles? Where should they start? I think that would be a question for Michelle too.
So again, talk to people. There are different routes into banking and financial services. We take people from all across different industries. I've taken people from Google and other places. So there's those types of things. I think through that network, we said network, a lot of jobs and a lot of opportunities come up through networking, and think about apprenticeships, perhaps other types of, job opportunities that you might have, interning and things like that, where you can actually gain some experience of what those different roles are in those organizations. And reading, information's ubiquitous now. You can learn a lot by reading, perhaps curating your Twitter feed to people who might, write for the Financial Times or something like that. So you can really get some good insight and understanding that you can bring to supplement your knowledge and what you're learning.
Thank you, Michelle. As somebody said, data is the new oil. So gathering information is equivalent to building skills. There's a question from Aryan Vaja to Ursula. What are the key features of an IT consultant? What kind of academic backgrounds do you look out for?
Clearly, if you look at just purely from a degree, you would look at IT, but also business technology. And I would say more and more companies, including ourselves, opening up to all sorts of degrees. I love personally business administration with a technology twist on it. Perhaps it's my history. But what's really important, other than a basic understanding of technology, actually the ability to demonstrate good communication skills, good teamwork skills, and actually also an understanding of, the ability to have empathy with clients. It's often underestimated because we focus so much on technology skills, but really to help to advise a customer or to work in a project team together, it's all also about interpersonal skills and communication. So coming back to perhaps what you have seen just think about what we heard about Michelle's career. Somebody saw something in her, at least twice in her life, and said, I give her a completely different job. And it was her personality, it will have been her interpersonal skills, her communication skills. Michelle, sorry for making assumptions about you, which I probably shouldn't. But it's what we are around IT consultants. That's where I would say it's really also your ability to work with others and your ability to communicate would be as important as your technology skills, if not more.
Thank you, Ursula. Got a very relevant pandemic impacted question. It's a question from Jade. Can you give us some suggestions as professionals how we can get hired in the industry, since we're all products of online learning? And for sure, companies might be questioning our credibility as students who weren't able to finish a degree in a face-to-face setup. So what do you think is the impact of this is going to have in the long term of almost a whole generation of students who have gone through online learning, struggle with GCSEs, the scores, and we've even seen some ads in some papers which says to 2021 graduates do not apply in some, which is shocking. So maybe this question to Becky. Becky, what's your take on this impact?
Yeah. Thank you, and I do sympathise actually, because I had my daughter, both of my daughters were impacted through their A-levels and their GCSEs through these times, and I think more than ever it's important. It certainly kind of feeds on from some of the responses to your previous questions. When I'm looking at taking on new talent, it's not necessarily to me around what academic qualifications people have got. It's around values and behaviours. And I think this also lends itself to the pandemic question. What you are showing is that you are adaptable, that you are resilient, that you have had to learn and digest information in a different way. So even though, Ursula mentioned that the importance of interconnecting and personal skills, that doesn't always have to be in a face-to-face environment, as this seminar proves itself. So, you can upskill yourself in terms of doing online presentations. You can still use examples outside the workplace. For me, it's really important to understand that individual. What you understand in how do they interact with other groups outside of work? What are their hobbies and their interests? How can you apply some of the personal or the skill sets that you would bring into a workplace, but how you can demonstrate them outside of an academic environment? There are opportunities like volunteering, for example, that are great examples of where you can get experience and use that to come back into the workforce. Lots and lots of online interactive opportunities as well. LinkedIn is great, as we've previously always mentioned. Take on that journey of self-learning. So I would just say, just be a little bit more flexible. It doesn't always have to be a work-related experience that you bring into a new role if this is your first role since graduating.
Thank you so much, Becky. That was very powerful, and I think it does give assurance to a lot of, I think, students who have these worries about how they're going to get through these challenges. So we are pretty much on time, but there was one last question which I thought was interesting about career moves. When you're going to switch profession or your career, how to prepare yourself? For example, you have experience and stability in one field, but want to explore a new one. It could be a startup. Its question is from Rishabh. That will be the last question before we move on to, so all students who are on the call, we have a recruitment specialist from Cognizant who will be talking about addressing a lot of the questions which we are not answered right now in terms of how to apply, what are the skills, how to get into an IT industry. So please be assured we will get to all of these questions. The expert is on hand. We'll take this question about switching careers, which is a big thing that's happening now, especially women who have taken a break, getting back into careers. What are the skills? What do you look for? So can I direct this question to Michelle and Ursula, because you had a touch of startups in your career, and then you moved on to the mainstreams. To pick this question, please.
Michelle, do you want to? Or
Yep. Yeah, sure, Ursula. So, read up, find out as much information as you can, talk to people in the industry. I mentioned it before, be super comfortable with being uncomfortable, right? Whenever you start a new job, whenever you go into something new, it is like learning something for the first time. It is consciously uncomfortable for a very, very, 3 to 6 months at least. You need to back yourself as well. Remember your resilience, draw on the things that give you energy that you're good at, that you know at, and anchor down on those sorts of things. But absolutely, I think every time I've made a career move, it's been a seriously rewarding one. I've grown from that, but I leverage some of the things, even from back when I worked in a bar. I can still remember some of the things that made good customer service and, made people smile and those things. And I bring that forward with me even today when we're looking at customer journeys and how people interact with us as a financial institution. They would be my top tips. Ursula, you've probably got some more.
Yeah. Because there are at the moment, first of all, if you're in an industry, if you want a job in an industry, at the moment you're in a really, really good position to find a different career, because essentially many industries are looking for people. The pandemic has created a huge move of people moving around, finding new jobs. So, and many companies are just really glad to find competent people and train them. So that's number one. So I think, but how to do and go about that? First of all, I always think it's good to find out, as Michelle said, find out more about the industry. And I would just ask around whether in your personal network, parents, friends are working in the industry where you want to go. And you just ask them for, them time, to give you time to explain you more about the job and about more the industry. Because the more you learn, the more you know how to direct the questions and where to apply. And for women, and again, so that's where I probably, I always, if I think don't underestimate to go just out about, ask on the internet, on LinkedIn, a question, I want to go and, enter this industry, or asking your friends, I want to, and their parents, I want to, you will find advice, and somebody might actually give you also an opportunity just to spend perhaps a few days free of charge working in a company, and God knows where that is leading. I remember my stepdaughter, she, she is now in technology as well, but she started off doing something for a week in the reception of a company. It all led to her career. So again, don't try to be too perfect. Just start interacting with the industry companies and the companies which you want to join. So I'm waffling a bit about, but I think you need to, don't worry too much. And it's simply that you don't have the skill. Just start, taking steps, interacting with the companies and the profession you would be interested in. And always look on the website, always look on LinkedIn. Many companies at the moment are really willing to help you to find to find employment in that company. And it could be also that you start in one department, perhaps not in your dream department, but you will, once within a company, you can always work. And last but not least, that's what I love about companies like Cognizant. We are serving all industries. We are having all types of role. And to change a job and change career is often done best within a company. And because you can say, oh, I did developing, now I want to do program management, or I want to become a consultant. Doing that within a company which knows you is really much easier than doing it cold. So again, company, that's why, allowing me to do some promotion for Cognizant. That's what I love about being in large company like ours.
Thank you, Ursula. Charlotte mentioned that she's going through a career change, so she wanted to pitch in. Please, Charlotte.
I agree with everything that Michelle and Ursula are saying. I'm starting a new role in a different sector in January, and just a couple of other points that I would add. I use the whole process to find out and meet as many people as possible, and now. Obviously, I know I'm going to the organization. I'm tapping into every network that I possibly can, immersing myself in the new industry, asking lots of questions, doing all of the background research. So when I land, I'll feel well prepared. I just wanted to just comment as well, just on the other points around the 2020 and 21 students, and exactly as I think Michelle touched upon, but resiliency and dealing with adversity is something absolutely that I look for when I'm hiring people into the organization, into my team. And actually the bigger picture, other than, in addition to kind of the academic experience, is so important. And I just saw a question that someone had asked about, and actually to Michelle and Ursula, but I'm going to be rude and jump in, but, about the candidacy of a 30-year-old mother who's just graduated. Do you know what I would think? I would look at that and I'd think, wow, real tenacity, a drive to learn, someone who's balancing multiple priorities, who's got a bit of life experience. Fantastic. Actually, I think the onus now is on companies and employers to actually really identify talent. There is a war for talent at the moment. I can't bring enough people in to teams and get the talent in. So it's actually a fantastic time for you to be showcasing your skills and looking for opportunities, because so many organizations need the skills and capabilities of the people that are on this call. So you've got to maximize the opportunities, as all of these people, fantastic speakers have been talking about. But just remember, you're in a very strong position.
Thank you, Charlotte. That's really valuable. And a lot of organizations are running the women returnship program. So do look out for that. There's special pathways created to enable women who have gone off are taking a career break for whatever reason, or trying to switch their careers, there is a lot of pathways created, including in Cognizant for women returnees. So with that, we complete our session with a fantastic panel of speakers, and we would be welcoming our early years recruitment specialist to talk to you all. Thank you, Ursula, Michelle, Becky, Charlotte, and Helen for your time. It was so engaging. I've got lots of notes written down, which we would also share with students who couldn't make it today. And thank you for your time. I'm sure the students enjoyed it. We have shared your the LinkedIn profiles for students to connect. I always enjoy my LinkedIn connects because I have lots of A-level students more than professionals, but it makes me feel young. So I'm sure you'll have a lot of students on your LinkedIn connect as well. But yeah, I think that's where we make a huge difference, opening up with the world of opportunities to them.
Yeah.
With that, I would be welcoming in Dan Doherty, our early years specialist. Thank you, speakers, for your time today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and have fun and good luck in your careers.
Thank you so much.
So last part of the session is going to be led by Cognizant's early years recruitment manager, Dan Doherty. Anyone who's connected with Dan on LinkedIn will tell you that he doesn't need a bio because the candidates he's helped hire cover that for him. They often post about how accessible and smooth he's made the recruitment process for them. This is no surprise as he holds over a decade's experience in recruitment. He's led and been involved in the successful hiring of candidates for Capgemini, a fellow big IT company, and QA apprenticeship, leading IT apprenticeship company. He's more recently taken up the role of chair of the UCAS Apprenticeship Advisory Board. UCAS handles the university application process for British universities. As chair, Dan is helping to shape their approach to non-traditional career paths. In other words, showing students that a tech degree isn't the only way into the tech industry. He's here today to get your career ready, and spoiler alert, tell you that tech isn't just about tech. So with that, over to Dan.
Thanks, Padma. That's such a great introduction as well, and it's great to be here. It's great to see so many young people looking at different careers, and it's something I'm massively passionate about over the last decade. Over the next 10 minutes, I wanted to dispel some myths, share some insights, and really give you some takeaways to help you navigate through your career paths, whether that whether that's technology, engineering, finance, legal, marketing, whatever your career route. A lot of these sort of founding principles will help you to navigate through those career paths. If you just go on to the next slide, we were going to kick off with a poll. And we were looking to understand what percentage of jobs that you actually think are in the tech sector. So if everybody on the call can vote, we'll start to see some of those answers come in. So a lot towards 25 to 50%, some talking about 5 to 25. We'll give it another 10 seconds. I think we've got probably coming up to half of the people participating now. Okay, so just as we see some more of those results come in, I think it's fair to say that around 2/3 of you think that a quarter to half of the roles are actually sat in the tech sector. And I think it actually comes down to terminology, because if you were to look at any developed countries across the globe, all of them have less than 5% of their jobs that sit in the tech sector as it's classified. And the reason this is quite important is to firstly dispel a myth that actually tech is a set of roles, it's an industry that actually supports and underpins or is a common denominator across all of the other sectors and industries. And I think it was mentioned by some of the panelists earlier and the speakers, it's related to unrelated industries now. So if you look at pharmaceuticals, agriculture, oil, energy, sectors that maybe were quite siloed previously, and you went in there as maybe an engineer or a salesperson or a marketeer or a legal or lawyer person. Actually, technology supports all types of jobs, so all types of grades and all types of industries. So I think it's a really, really important sector to consider, but it's not the only one to consider. So hopefully that's dispelled some myths that less than 5% of roles are actually in the tech sector. If we go on to the next slide, you'll actually see some of these different sectors. So this is a snapshot of the different sort of industries that that Cognizant operate in. So we ourselves are classed in the tech sector as a company, but our clients actually sit in all of these other sectors. And you've obviously heard from some of them today. So that may be in the likes of retail, it could be in financial services. There's big growth in healthcare and life sciences. Most sectors and industries are kind of covered by the likes of Cognizant and other tech firms. And you can see at the bottom there, we've just re-illustrated the point that technology is representative as a sector for under 5% of roles, but actually if you think about how tech influences all of those sectors, it's much more than that. And I think we have people in Cognizant that work in both technical and business roles, and they may operate in a sector which actually you don't normally associate with technology. So I think my main message here is be open-minded when searching your career routes, employers and opportunities. And I think you'll widen your chances and options by searching by roles and not necessarily by sectors or those stereotypical employers. So by that, I mean, if you want to go down a finance route, you don't have to go and work for the big financial services companies. You could work in technology sector, but in a finance role. If we move on to the next slide, if we can, you'll see two phrases here, which you may not have heard, but I've definitely heard over the last 10 years or so. So I'll just read them out. You need to have studied computer science to be a techie, or you need to be a techie to work in tech. And I think some of these phrases were almost paraphrased earlier by some of the ladies we heard from. And again, they helped me to kind of dispel that myth. Which is that you don't have to be technical or a techie or have a technical education or background or experience to actually work in technology. And you also can pretty much learn anything you like these days. And I think some of the questions we had from the audience alluded to the fact that there's lots of online and digital based learning, which I'm going to come to a little later in the deck. But it is really breaking down those barriers now. It's far easier to enter the tech industry than many others as it was before, because largely you're using tech to learn about the tech industry. So what I would say on here is don't assume that linear education or career paths are what everyone has done. You've probably heard the stories from the ladies earlier, and my own story. I studied something which doesn't really have much to do with recruitment. It doesn't mean that you had to have that background to go into recruitment, and if you want to go into law or finance or marketing, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have studied that. And really, one critical point that was mentioned just before I came on was around passion. It's the one thing that employers cannot teach you or instill in you. That's the one thing they're going to expect from you. So if you can do anything, veer towards opportunities that are linked to what your passion in terms of your strengths. So like, what you enjoy, what you maybe do often, or what you would like to do more of. If we go on to the next slide, there's another myth I would like to dispel today, is that not all roles in tech are actually technical. And you're going to see two lists in a second. On the left, you've got a technical list, and then on the right, you've got a non-technical list. I'm not going to go through all of the role titles in here, and some of them you may not understand or know much about, but it gives you an indication of the breadth. You've got some technical roles which might link to things like cloud technology, DevOps, cybersecurity. People talked about data earlier. I think a fun fact around data for me, which I'm not sure if it's still factually true, but about 5 years ago, somebody that worked in my old company, Capgemini, had quoted that at the time that in the past 7 seconds, there was more data collected and analysed than there was in the history of time. And that 7 seconds was going to quickly become 6 and 5. So my homework for you would be to find out how many seconds we're actually operating at now, because I'd love to know. There's also a handful of roles in tech that these are just a handful of roles that are in technology, and there's many more, but these tend to be the roles that Cognizant and other large employers and small companies as well tend to hire entry-level talent into as an apprentice, an intern, a graduate, or maybe even a second job or a career reskiller. And it's probably worth knowing that some people with technical education or experience backgrounds actually sometimes go into those non-technical routes where they have a technology foundation, but they want to go into more business, people, consulting type of role. And vice versa. They may be non-technical and want to upskill or reskill into a technical route. And then if we go on to the next slide, you'll see a number of different images here, and hopefully you'll be able to read the top left, which is a screen grab from a recent LinkedIn poll. I like to do these for 2 main reasons. One, to understand what potential students are thinking, and secondly, to understand what maybe other employers are doing. And I think what was really interesting here was that the poll was designed to look at employers, recruiters, and hiring managers' thoughts on things like degrees versus non-degrees. And there's a big rise, particularly in the digital space, which you'll see illustrated on the right-hand side, which gives you kind of a snapshot of the digital learning landscape at the moment. I'd really encourage you to go and have a look into an article which I've posted on LinkedIn around a month ago, which is about this landscape, because it will really open up the doors and windows for you to go and learn anything you like in regards to technology. So if you're thinking about a career in tech, then it's a great place to have a look around and see what options there are. If you know exactly what part of tech you want to specialize in already, then have a look at these options as well, because there's some strategic partners across the bottom which Cognizant work with. Some of them you will have heard of, some of them you won't, but are on the rise. And they themselves have a lot of online education and curriculums for you to go and learn and get certifications. So Salesforce run a great Pathfinder program. Microsoft have a lot of resources and curriculums and a lot of Microsoft related apprenticeships out there. And Google as well, run a lot of academies online. And of course, Adobe, you can pretty much learn and gain licenses and certifications in those kinds of skills. The main thing is that these employers are actually going to be teaching you these skills if you're employed by them. So if you actually come with them before you apply to these companies, you will stand out from the crowd. And a lot of these you can do for free in terms of monetary terms, but you obviously have to invest your own time. But again, it goes back to that hobby or passion. If you're really interested in that subject matter and you're really keen on a career in these kinds of technology areas, then employers will really love that, because they can't coach your passion. And the main point really, before we move on to the next slide, is that you don't actually need an IT degree to work in IT. This next slide is around your digital footprint, how you can go about navigating towards careers. We heard about research earlier, and I've heard the word network mentioned a lot, and particularly LinkedIn. So I won't go over too much of this repeatedly, but what I wanted to do is probably reframe this for you. So digital footprint is a term that you hear a lot. In essence, it's your online presence, it's your activity, it's your content. Whether that's health products, whether that's Netflix series, Google searches, LinkedIn profiles, or TikTok videos that you consume. It's important that you understand what your footprint is, because it influences what influences you. So what you really want to do is be able to control those algorithms which produce content or feeds to you, because that in effect influences what you're influenced by. So don't let the algorithm control you, okay? Control the algorithm. It's no different to you having a TV series on the telly, or you're looking through a TV guide and you having the remote control. So think about the algorithm online and your digital footprint as that remote control. Nobody else has that remote control for you, only you. Okay, so control the algorithm, don't let the algorithm control you. And you'll start to see more content that you want to consume, more inspiring content around careers and health and food and science and anything that you're particularly interested in. Secondly, let the roles find you. What do I mean by this? Well, this is where you can tailor what you see and what finds you. So use alert settings on things like Google or job searches, or search engines or job sites or things like LinkedIn. So that, again, you're controlling what comes to you via email or via text or via, your feed. It will save you time in searching because the searchers will find you. Okay, so I have alerts, for example, that come up 9 a.m. every morning about our competitors, the market that I work in, some really niche certain things that I'm really interested in. And it saves me so much time trying to find this information. The information finds me. Research the routes. Research was mentioned a lot earlier. I completely agree. A career route, a job, a move to a different employer is as big a milestone and doesn't happen that frequently for a lot of people. It's like buying a house, it's like getting married, it's like having a baby. It's actually, as important as some of those things for a lot of people. So make sure you do your research, find the right culture, the right people who've got the right values, they've got, diversity, activity, anything you're really interested in that you want an employer to provide you and inspire you, then go and do that. And there's no better way than connecting with your network, going on LinkedIn, adding and messaging those people who are in those roles that you aspire to go into, or maybe formerly were in those roles and have moved up the chain. They will connect back with you. They will speak to you. Don't worry about that. They are representing their brand and themselves. And LinkedIn, to give you some insight, the most popular activity on LinkedIn is to look at other people's profiles. Okay, very different to other social platforms where that might be looked at differently. But do use your network. And I think if you can register your interest on any employer sites, you will find that actually most opportunities are not in the shop window, they're actually in the storeroom. So what do I mean by that? If you were to search for a job right now after this meeting, this event, you will find 0.1% of any roles that employer is recruiting for that part of the year. There's 365 days of the year. So if you only search infrequently, you're only going to get those readily available roles. Okay, so what you want to do is actually flip that and stretch out your job search, but you're doing it via employers, via sector, via research, via your network. And then when you go to apply, you're actually applying for roles which come to your alerts rather than you finding something that's only available on that particular day. Okay, so a lot of things are happening in the storeroom. I've got roles coming up in 2022 that you won't know about, but I will need to position that to people who are interested in those roles. And just quickly on to the next slide, we're coming to the end now, just a couple of slides to go. And recruitment itself has been affected by technology. So it wasn't an industry that I particularly, talked about massively in the early part of this deck, but in my own area of work, I've been massively impacted by technology over the last 10 years or so. So we've now moved largely toward digital interviewing, not just because of the pandemic and limited on-site face-to-face time that we can have with people, but actually before the pandemic and over the last 5, 7, 8 years, digital interviewing, both in a recorded and live setting, was fairly normal. Okay, it provided speed, it provided people to be relaxed in their own home or their own office or school, and they could record those kind of things in their own time as well. Digital assessments have also been really important to be able to identify and prove that people have certain skills, whether it be writing code, whether it be numerical assessments, whether it be analyzing information, whether it be multiple choice. Again, digital assessments have been able to help employers to work out which candidates might be the best fit for those roles. And now more so than ever, and I think this is probably spiked in the pandemic, is that there are more online digital first content consumption in terms of competition and courses and curriculums, which allow people to go and study, learn, gain insights, and fulfill their time, and get some value from these employers. And a really good point that was mentioned earlier was that it is actually up to the employers to drive opportunities. There is so much talent out there, it was mentioned earlier. I completely agree. There should not be a skill shortage in the world of technology. There are more people out there looking to get into tech than there are opportunities in tech. It's just creating more less linear entry points that employers need to work on. So that is reskilling, that is upskilling, that is not being particularly strict with criteria about entering the tech sector. So Cognizant, like many other companies, are trying to produce more ways of entering the industry. and that hopefully will be something you're interested in the future. And very finally, before the next slide, is that if you were to Google YouTube, a Google or YouTube Vodafone 5G holographic call, you'll find that 3 years ago there was the first ever mobile call in 5G, which allowed Steph Houghton, who's the England women's captain for football, and they made a call to her, and she was in another part of the country like Manchester, and she was actually on the stage as a hologram, a bit like those people you see at the airports that as you walk through. She was actually there in person on the stage, but actually wasn't there in person, but in a holographic format. And I think in the future, when we interview candidates, I'll be able to see them across my desk at home in my dining room. Okay, that's where I think it will go. On to the next slide, which is the final one before any questions, is that in terms of Cognizant, we have opportunities globally. I know we've got representation from all corners of the world today, which is fantastic. And I've just listed, from having a look last week on our site, some live opportunities in these countries, in case they are relevant for you, where you're living at the moment. As I say, that was just a snapshot. So keep looking, keep signing up to those alerts. Follow our social channels on the right-hand side, and you'll see some wider content, not just about what roles we have, but actually what our people are about, what values we have, what are we doing in certain spaces, how are we giving back to the community. And from a UK perspective, we will have a lot of roles at a graduate and apprentice level from summer 2022 onwards. So thank you very much for your time, sorry, and for letting me share some of those insights and dispelling some of those myths and giving you some calls to action. Hopefully it's been useful, and look forward to hopefully seeing some of you working in Cognizant or generally in the tech sector in the next 5 or 10 years.
Thank you, Dan. That was insightful even for me, because I get asked so many times when we talk to students on how do you go about applying for a job in Cognizant, and I do struggle to answer, but this is very insightful, and hoping that students, all of you, have found this helpful too. Any questions for Dan? I know we were flooded with questions earlier on recruitment, hiring, skilling, but I think Dan's presentation was very self-explanatory, at answering most of those questions. But if you have any further questions, please put it on chat. Outreach does host the LinkedIn sessions for students. So do look out for those sessions that we keep posting online, and advertising through schools. So it is a place you've got to be, right? The whole the earlier process of writing a CV, sending it by post, or filling out a form is not going to hold up. Things move too fast, and everything is happening on LinkedIn. It's not just for graduates, for people seeking change in employment, change of roles, anything. So LinkedIn has to be top on your priority, and spending some time researching all those links that Dan talked about, looking at Twitter, looking at the website, looking at doing the research, understanding what you're interested in, and going prepared for an interview makes a lot of difference. And the preparation happens by doing your groundwork. So I don't see any questions. Is there any openings for Cognizant? I think Dan just mentioned a lot of openings in Cognizant, different numbers in different countries. Dan, if you want to add to that, what kind of numbers we're looking at generally, and what kind of roles is Cognizant generally looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I can vouch for the UK roles. Firstly, we've got a lot of recruitment to do over the next 3 years in the UK as we expand by 35% of our workforce, and a lot of that hiring will be across the UK into those roles that I listed on one of the earlier slides, whether it be developers, engineers, analysts, and that'll be across apprenticeships right the way through to second jobbers and reskilling candidates as well. So whether you finished the GCSEs or A levels or the equivalent, or maybe a degree, or you're looking for an internship, there are going to be plenty of those opportunities. For the countries that I mentioned on the slide as well, I think the vacancies they've got there vary from roles that are connected to linguistics. So if you speak multiple languages, they're looking for people there that can translate. We do a lot of work with some companies which need their content translated. There's other roles which are more stereotypical sort of technical roles. There's project manager roles and support roles in delivery as well. So there really is a wide range. And when you do go onto the Cognizant Careers site, you can filter and you can use the chatbot as well to navigate towards those roles. There's usually in every country at least a couple of hundred roles at any one point at different grades. So I think if you're regularly looking every couple of weeks and you set up those alerts, then you probably shouldn't miss any kind of relevant roles that you're looking for in the future. So yeah, I guess watch this space. Feel free to connect on LinkedIn as well. You'll see me posting some opportunities over the next 6, 12, 18 months, regardless of your current or future situation. And I think one point I just wanted to mention that was covered earlier was around those university routes. There may be some people on this call that are at university or are thinking of going that may end up looking at options to not complete their course. Just make sure that you don't feel imposter syndrome or feel inferior on that, because the fact that you've chosen the decision to not continue may or may not be in your control, but don't feel like that will leave you feeling as an inferior candidate when competing with others. You're only competing with yourself. As long as you've got the passion, that is half the battle, and the employers will look at your potential, not your past.
Thank you, Dan. That was very comprehensive. I was just looking at for a lot of India candidates, there is an off-campus hiring which is closing on 24th of October. I've just put the link there. It's https://cogniz.at@genc. And they're looking for a 2019, 2020, and 2021 batch of BE, BTech, ME, MTech, MCA, MSc, and MS Software Engineering. A 5-year integrated course students can apply. And so please check in. It's 24th October is a closure for this. And this is for Gen Z developer roles, starting at a designation of a PAT. So that's for students who have joined from India. We have a couple more questions. Dan, what are your top 2 tips for virtual interviews?
Very good question. Yeah, we get asked this quite a lot. I would say when you get invited to the platform, so you'll normally be given, a number of days notice, perhaps. I would check if there is a practice zone or a link for you to go and get familiar with the audio. Check that your lighting is okay. It's not the most natural thing to see yourself on the screen and talk as we're doing now. It happens quite infrequently, and it's not something that you should feel like you're overly comfortable with. However, I would say just make sure that the technical audio and you getting yourself used to seeing yourself on the screen is getting over a kind of an initial hurdle. Once you've done a few of those video interviews, it becomes a little bit more sort of normal for you, and you can kind of acclimatize. But I think the second thing I would say is make sure you know if the answers are also going to be timed and recorded. So if you've got a time limit or not on each of those questions, because you may have a really fantastic answer that may take you a few minutes that you need to really shorten down and make concise. So have a look at the timings, just so that you can almost convert your stock or your banked answer into something that's a little bit more concise, or the other way around, where you've got 3 minutes and you wish to sort of fill that with more detail that they're kind of looking for.
And the next question was, what is your favorite question to ask a candidate during a tech interview?
So our interviews don't tend to be for entry-level roles overly technical. So I think if I was to generically pick one, it would be how would your friends and family describe you? And the reason for that is because it gives us an idea of their self-awareness, and what strengths do they actually convey to others? What kind of strengths and values have they got which are actually valuable to others? So regardless of your age and your background and level of experience, self-awareness is something that employers will be looking for. So if you are saying that people would say that you're really interested in technology and you're really interested in data, or you're quite mathematical, you should start to see that people talk quite positively or in a positive kind of intonation, or they feel quite they take a lot of pride in that particular characteristic, and therefore that maybe is something that's classed as a strength. So without asking somebody direct what are your strengths, it often is a roundabout way to try and bring out what their strengths are.
Thank you, Dan. There's a question from Jade, which I think is relevant to all of us. How do you determine who is qualified? How do you select a person in a line of hopefuls in a recruitment? Because many of them have pretty much similar qualification. Other than the details, eye contact, posture, confidence, what are those other details that's important to you when you're selecting candidates? What makes the candidate stand out?
So research can be often misunderstood. So when we say about research, we're not asking you to show us how good you are at researching, because you can find anything out from anywhere nowadays. You don't have to knock on doors or go into offices. You can find absolutely anything about a company or what they're doing. That's just showing that you can search Google and YouTube and social media sites. It's the interpretation and individualization of that information which will stand you out. So if you look at Cognizant and you're really interested in what we're doing from an outreach perspective, well, most companies have an outreach program, but why is what Padma and the team doing which really differentiates? Is it something that's really close to your heart? Is it something that you're really passionate about? Are you perhaps a volunteer in something that's quite similar? Really interpret that information and make it really personalized. I'd think of it a bit like if you drive a car or you live in a house that's the same as all the other houses exterior wise on the street, or out on the forecourt, but inside you've got an air freshener that's your football club, or actually on the inside of that black door is a white side, or you've got certain lighting in the kitchen, or you have different colored chairs to the person next door to you. That's how you end up personalizing your own answers and yourself. So it's kind of linked a little bit to personal branding, but what I would say is don't misunderstand when they talk about why Cognizant, why the role, and why the industry, because they've heard all of those stock answers before, but they want to hear your answer, your interpretation, and only you can interpret that.
Thank you, Dan. That was really helpful. Bringing in your personal, authentic self, I think that's very key to, because you can prepare as much as you want, but finally it has to be what you are truly that needs to come out during an interview. So thank you, Dan. I think, is that right way to decide a single interview? Yeah, Shanti's asking, will just one single, that's the unfairness of life, isn't it, Shanti? It is, you get one chance at many things. Dan, any answer to that?
I mean, it's not the only thing we look for, but it does often differentiate candidates who have prepared well, but they've not sold themselves. Someone mentioned earlier, recruitment is very much a two-way thing. So there's a reason you've applied in the first place, is because it looks like an employer or a role that you're interested in, and we have to be able to differentiate in the same way. So you might have applied to 10 companies for 10 roles, and we might be interviewing 10 candidates for one role. Okay, so it works very much both ways, and there is going to be slight things which are, the process will be consistent for all candidates, but it's the candidate's interpretation of that process which often in some ways allows them to discard employers or discard processes or discard roles, because they find that it's not quite right for them. I think the main thing as well is that the entry-level recruitment, there is very little to differentiate candidates from an experience perspective. Okay, so we wouldn't hire somebody who's got more experience for an entry-level role than somebody that's got no experience, because it's clear that it's an entry-level role, so you don't need experience for the role. It's not a prerequisite. When you go into more senior roles, then obviously the candidate pool becomes less, the more niche skills become more apparent, and it's probably in some respects easier to select candidates at a higher, more senior, hierarchical level than candidates that are at an entry level, which means that the actual emphasis is more on the candidate to differentiate themselves rather than the employer to create a process which which selects people to kick them out. In my recruitment process, it's actually about more trying to give the opportunities for candidates to stay in the process, because it's harder to sort of find those things that differentiate them. So a CV alone, isn't a justification as to why you would screen someone out, in my opinion. There needs to be more than that.
Thank you, Dan. And so that brings us to a close to the session, but as a preparation for attending virtual interviews, can you see how many of you are happy to come on to video so we can take a group picture? So I think the first step is having the confidence to turn on your video for an interview, right? So can I request the students who are happy for your pictures to be shared or photo to be taken to come on to the video, please. We'll take a group picture. It's a virtual world, so it's all going to be group pictures on Zoom going forward. It's lovely to see you all. This is a mini world in one screen across regions. Thank you all. I really hope that you found this session useful, got insights, you're inspired to pursue a career of your choice, and lots of good messages that came out today. Resilience. If there is failure, but it's about rising up from that, persisting at what you want to pursue, and doing your research, going after what you want, picking up every opportunity that comes your way, and networking, and LinkedIn. So please do get onto LinkedIn. It's a good, easiest is to create a profile today and click on the links that we shared on the chat so that you're connected, and then try to attend a LinkedIn session, look out for training sessions at Outreach posts. So thank you all today. Thanks, Dan, for your time. A very insightful session for me too. And thanks to the team who made this happen today, Midisha, Manmeet, Rajan, Niti, and have a lovely rest of your day. We'll all keep in touch. Can we get a wave from all of you? Bye-bye. Perfect. Thank you. Bye-bye.